Anyone who's guilt tripping you by saying you shouldn't want to get in shape, get more muscular, you shouldn't want to lose some fat, um, um, to get into more peak health than you're currently in. Because if you do, that's fat phobic. Or even if they're saying you shouldn't lose hundreds of pounds that you're overweight by, like, on the basis that means you look at overweight people and you just really can't stand looking at them and you don't like them and you dislike. They'll even use like the word hate. They will say you have a prejudice against, you don't like fat people, you are fat phobic. That message that's affecting a lot of young people online, where they are terrified, you can tell, of saying anything that would imply that being overweight has any downsides, or implying that anyone might personally just not like how being overweight looks, in the same way that it's perfectly fine for people to say that being underweight is unattractive and they are really mean and cool about it, but it's like so socially acceptable to say that, and that's mainstream. That's not just the fat acceptance movement I'm talking about, but the message that is coming from online and then leaking, it seems to me, into more people's lives who don't even know where it comes from, is the message that you mustn't say that being overweight is bad at all, and that you don't want to be overweight, that you personally don't want to be overweight, because if you do, it must mean that you don't want to be big, and that means you don't like big people or you're prejudiced. And obviously the most obvious rebuttal is it's actually about health. But what about for the times when it's not? And is that not still okay, as long as someone's still aiming for something that's healthy, or healthier than they currently are? Because you can be within the normal BMI range. BMI is not very accurate when it comes to, only at the extremes where you don't even need it anyway. Is BMI actually like congruent with reality? It's in the middle, and at the lower end, BMI is really not that accurate. It's for an individual level. Only at societal changes over time it can be useful. I use it for societal tracking over time when I was analysing like how ultra processed food causes obesity epidemics. You can see then it's useful because you're looking at population level changes, but individuals, which person is underweight at what threshold is really bad, what overweight at which threshold. But I'm talking about anyone who just wants to improve their fitness and get more muscular, regardless of what that does to their BMI, but they're still like, their hormones are all fine, and they don't have anything happening in their body that means that for their particular body they are too big or too small. But people tell you that you shouldn't want to sculpt your body, that you should be, because that means that you don't like big people. And I can say, no, I actually let myself gain weight. And one of the things I did when I let myself gain a bunch of weight the other year, really quickly, and then lost it really quickly, and then lost more than I'd originally started at when I started gaining the weight. One of the things I used to tell myself that it was fine, that I'd just decided, you know what, for various reasons, I'm just gonna eat all day. What the hell, right? And one of the things I used in my mind was, there's this guy I really admire who, a celebrity. You won't guess who it is. There's no way. But it's a celebrity. Might not even be the right word. It's an academic who he's a public figure, and they are big, and they're also very charismatic, and I like them a lot, and they've got that sort of jolly fat person archetype about them. And I thought, hey, people say, for some reason, people say that about me. It always surprises me a bit, but a lot of people see me as perky, and certainly when I'm talking about things I'm into, they'll say that I'm like that, that they see me as very enthusiastic. I can see that, and I thought, hey, I could pull off fat and jolly. I'll be the fat jolly person, and I'll like see my softness as like cute and cuddly and warm and friendly, like, because I can see that. I can look at big people and think, oh, it represents softness, nice warmth and stuff like that. You can look at it that way, or you can look at it through your evolutionary brain, which says I know that's not healthy, and it gives me this unpleasant reaction to look at specifically big bellies. The reason we don't like looking at big bellies, most people, there is genetic variation, is because it's the worst place metabolically to have fat, and it also can mean a whole range of other health problems. When you've got it could be really bad bloating, it could be some kind of infection, a tumor. Like, there are so many bad reasons you can have a belly sticking out, a hernia, that we don't, that's that most people don't like to see one on themselves, and it's not attractive. But lots of things aren't attractive. It doesn't mean you don't like a person just because there's one aspect of their appearance that you don't find attractive. Like, every single person, almost everyone, has something about them that you don't find attractive, and that other things that you do find attractive. I kind of think someone has the most beautiful eyes, perfect teeth, or a perfect body, but a really big nose, and I think, oh, that poor person, I feel sorry for them, because I know that they probably got picked on for having such a big nose, because something like that. But then you'll like other things about them. It's not the be all and end all. Just because you personally don't like one aspect visually of someone's appearance, it doesn't mean you're going to hate them. It doesn't mean that you even hate that. Hate is too strong even for how you feel about the body. Usually it's just not what you're into. Maybe it gives you a little bit of a displeasure reaction to look at, and then you'll get used to it very, like, in a second. You'll forget about it and focus on the rest of them. Like with any other physical trait, it's just any physical trait, whether it's having a strange rash, or I've got psoriasis, and it's got a lot better since I got rid of it, since I it replaced ultra processed with all traditionally processed versions of everything I eat. My psoriasis is much better. But I used to be self-conscious about my elbows showing, and I wouldn't have been offended if someone looked at me and thought, I don't want your elbows like that. I'm glad I don't have your elbows. I'm going to try to get rid of my psoriasis so I don't have elbows that look like yours. I wouldn't have been offended by that. I wouldn't have felt attacked personally. I would have been like, yeah, of course you don't want elbows that look like this. Why would you want, back then, why would you want elbows that look like this? Why would you want that? It's also itchy and uncomfortable, much like being overweight is physically uncomfortable in a way that you don't notice necessarily. I hear a lot of people say they didn't notice until they lost it. I knew because I gained it so quickly and lost it. I had a thing to compare it to. But even just going by the visual thing, if you're not even, obviously there's the health part of people telling you, oh, don't get big like me, it's so uncomfortable, and here are all the downsides. It's those testimonies. And even when it's not those, the whole idea that not wanting to look like someone because you don't like how it looks visually is offensive. It's like, but people do that with underweight all the time. Any health problem, we do meth before and afters of, is that terribly offensive and hateful towards meth addicts? Is it terribly hateful and offensive to say, look at this person before they had anorexia nervosa and afterwards? Is that horribly offensive? I don't think so. Unless you're taking their picture without their permission. But lots of people do that all the time, and it's seen as a good thing, that we say anything really unhealthy, that we should shock people and say, don't and that's the extremes, right? I'm not saying it's shocking when someone's a bit overweight or a bit underweight. I think these days people do act as if it's shocking when someone's like an ounce underweight. They like freak out, whereas you can get like very overweight before anyone says anything. But there is that double standard. But for me personally, I think slightly under, slightly over, it's not shocking visually. I'm not saying it's good, but it's not shocking visually. But even if it is, why is the double standard? Why is it okay to say? Why is it so okay to say I don't want to look underweight? No, that's not controversial. No one will hate me for saying I look at very thin people, like unhealthily thin people, and I don't want to look like that because apart from the health, obviously, I also just don't think it looks good. I don't think it would look good on me. I don't think it would make me, when I get dressed in the morning, and I like to dress myself up as a piece of art. For me, I like being playful, even if I'm not going anywhere. I just, for my own benefit, it's like making a doodle in the morning, and I want to look cool or interesting in some way. I'm treating myself as an art piece, so you've got the sculpting of your body, which is for artistic purposes, into what you personally find visually most appealing, which I'm not there yet. I want to be a lot more muscular, really, but it's hard. And then you've got the painting part. It's you're sculpting the body, you're painting the face, you're accessorizing with the clothes, and it's making something visually interesting for yourself. For me personally, I'm not interested in what other people think of what I look like, unless it's for practical reasons, like in a job interview or something, or just I don't want people to throw things at me in the street, sure, but I'm not motivated positively by other people's liking how I look that much. A little bit, but mostly I wouldn't do it if I didn't like it, and it's nice for me to look at what I like looking at visually, and if other people like looking at a different type of body completely, that's fine. And if they look at me and think I look ugly, like, first of all, they're right, because whatever you see, whatever you think is the truth. Like, when it comes to beauty, it is subjective. It's literally your brain's reaction in response to a sensory stimulus. Beauty is just that phenomenon that happens in the brain. So you can't be wrong. If you think someone's ugly, if you think I'm ugly, you're right. If you think I'm beautiful, you're right. Whatever you feel like as beauty or ugliness, it's correct. So there is no objective beauty. There's only like objectively facts of what most people tend to find attractive, and in most things apart from body hair, but that's a really interesting other thing, because I think that's a really interesting one. But for the most part, with body shape and size and body composition, that is so clearly driven by genetics, and we are evolutionarily most of us like certain ranges of bodies. It's not of one perfect, like everyone agrees on this one thing. There's a range, but it clusters around a mean of we want to look healthy. And I don't understand the double standard of, you're allowed to say that you don't want to have a big wart on your nose, and that's not offensive. I mean, if you did say it right to the face of someone unprovoked, just said it to that person, that's rude. Like, I would never go up to someone and say, I don't want to look like you for anything, in any way whatsoever. I wouldn't go up to a blind person and say, oh, I'm glad I'm not blind. I would hate to be blind. But there are situations where in context that has kind of sort of happened, but in context it's been fine. Like when I have my serious eye disease, I was on forums for people who have my eye, or Facebook groups for people who have that eye disease, and there wasn't any in that context where you're on a group for that eye disease, which has a chance of causing blindness in people. The people who had lost a lot of vision, maybe all of it, for all I know, it's not like, well, it wasn't made clear who had how much vision, and people can use aids to help them use the internet without, if you didn't know, without being able to see at all. So they could have been completely blind, and I was sensitive in how I said things. I wasn't going to go, oh, I would absolutely, it wouldn't be worth living if I had blindness. I wouldn't say that in a form where I know other blind people are. That's like insensitive. But I'm also going to freely say, I'm scared of going blind. I don't want to go blind. I don't want to lose my sight. And it wouldn't mean, no one in that group was like saying, you should be okay with going blind. You shouldn't be trying to treat your eye condition and prevent blindness. Why would you want to prevent blindness? Do you not want to be like me? What's wrong with me that you don't want to be like me? Like, are you ableist? Or blind phobic? That is the same logic. And it's like, no, I don't want to go blind. And it doesn't mean that I don't like blind people, in the same way that and it's the same thing. Obviously there's a disability element there that's the biggest part, but when it comes to visual things, it's just a personal preference, and you can have a personal preference of how you want to look and not hate people who look different to that. Like most people don't dress like me, and I'm not offended if they hate how I look. I've got a friend who openly tells me they hate how I look, and we're very honest with each other, and literally it doesn't even offend me a slightest bit. But and in the way that she does it, there's a way of doing it which if most people said it, to be honest, I would think they were being rude for no reason. But it would depend on the context. If I asked, I can't get offended. Like in the context it comes up, it's completely fine that she says this to me. She's also a lot older, and there are other factors, like she's different from a different culture. And I just know that she is not trying to hurt my feelings, but she's being honest, and I actually find it flattering that she's that honest with me. Now, when it comes to bodies, again, I'm not going to tell someone what I think of their body, whether it's too bony or whether it's got too much fat on it to be healthy. If I don't find that attractive, I'm not going to go around telling them that. But if I say I don't want to be underweight or I don't want to be overweight, I don't see what the difference is. Why is it treated so differently? Why is it fatphobic to say you don't want to be overweight? Because if you say, because I don't like how it looks, that's fatphobic. Even a lot of other people who don't think it's fatphobic normally, if you say I don't like how it looks, they'll still be a bit, oh, you shouldn't say that, it should be only about health. But you can say that about you don't want to look underweight. You can say I don't want to look too bony because I don't think it looks good, and no one seems to care that much unless you're being super rude to an actual thin person in front of you. People don't mind that, oh yeah, of course it's unattractive to be too skinny, of course it is, that's natural, of course everyone doesn't want to be too skinny. But it's, why is that any different with being overweight? Why is that different? And it doesn't mean you don't like them. Like I said, I actually liked this one guy so much, that who was big, that I thought, oh, I'll be like him. And that was a horrible mistake, because as soon as I got bigger, I was like, oh wait, why? And then I started looking up and found, no, it is normal. You do get really sweaty, you do get overheated, you do start panting when you go up and down the stairs, or itchiness and just things rubbing and chafing. I hadn't really come across anyone talking about this, not at those low weights. At high weights, yes, but I wasn't even overweight enough where I thought that would happen. And it's like, oh my gosh, I've made a horrible mistake, and I lost it really quickly. And then all of that stuff went away. My cholesterol went back down to normal because it had gone up. I had bad triglycerides. My blood pressure went up for the first time in my life. I've always had like too low blood pressure, and now it was too high. And that was just from getting to, I'm not going to talk about BMI because I say for individuals it's not useful, but I wasn't like as big as I would have thought it took to get those particular complications, but I was. And it's like, and I didn't like, I mean, yeah, I could look at it as warm and soft, but also I can look at healthy and sort of thin and healthy muscular, and they also can represent positive things, like, you know, strength. Like, it's in the same way that being soft and warm, it just, you have that association with a big, like a soft, warm, nice to cuddle and jolly and enjoys their food. You've got all these positive associations of, oh, this person loves life, that you could see with overweightness. You can do the same with being thin, of, oh, this person's really active, and they their life doesn't evolve around food. They don't have a unhealthy, chaotic relationship with food where they use it to self-soothe. Maybe, you know, like you can have a positive interpretation of a body type at either end. Okay, so well, not really, yeah, even being very underweight, the reason a lot of people want it is because, again, what it represents. So in the same way, you can look at someone really big and associate that, if you want, in your mind with positive traits, which may or may not apply. And you can do that with underweight people and associate it with, oh, they have such good self-control, they're so disciplined, they're in control, they don't need the things other people need, they've risen above society, they've risen above the capitalist system because they live on so little food, they don't need anything from anyone. These are all like the kind of, you know, obviously a little bit perverse thoughts that can go through the minds of someone who wants to look really thin. And honestly, my thoughts were a bit perverse in their own way, because it's unhealthy to be that big, and I knew that, but I was trying to like see it as, oh, it's like Father Christmas, that old, you know, trope. I could be like a jolly Father Christmas, which didn't work because, first of all, I'm not that jolly. Like, I'm not like, I've got my happy, enthusiastic, bubbly, I don't know about bubbly, that's the wrong word. I've got an energetic side to me, and I'm a very friendly person. I'm a very nice person, I think, as long as you're nice and not annoy me. I can be very nice. But I've got other sides of me that are not always that nice. And then what? Then I'm not a jolly fat person anymore. I'm just fat and sweaty and hot and uncomfortable and panting. So please don't guilt trip people, or I'm not even talking to those people. I'm talking to the people who might be listening to them and have been guilt tripped. Young people, please don't just think of it like those analogies. You know, it's not offensive unless you are actually being a bully about it, and it's not offensive to want to look how you want to look. You know, you might want to look bigger than someone else or smaller than someone else. It doesn't mean you are prejudiced against them and you don't like their personality. You might like their personality so much that it inspires you to start looking more like them, like I did. And then I was like, oh, this is a mistake. I want to look one of the other ways I find attractive. I find several bodies attractive, and the way I want to look now is one that aligns with good health and fitness, and because it feels so much better physically and mentally. Your mental health gets so much better when you are exercising to your peak level, and your hormones are in perfect balance only when you get your fat to muscle ratio right, really. You have a little bit too much fat, it's going to be a little bit imbalancing for your hormones. And so it's a degree thing. It's not that a little bit is fine. It's a little bit is a little bit bad. A lot too much is a lot bad. You know, a little underweight is a little bit bad. A lot underweight is a lot bad. But you get to, no one should be bullying you into staying a little. If you are a little bit too fat and your BMI says you're normal, but your body composition is bad, you are still overweight. BMI just isn't accurate for your bones. You've got light bones, light bone structure, not wide skeleton, smaller internal organs for your height. So no one should be telling you that because your BMI is is fine, your body composition doesn't matter. It does affect your health. And they shouldn't be calling you shallow, because it's your body and you have to look at it every day. And it doesn't mean that you judge other people negatively, or that you make everything about appearance, your own or others. It doesn't mean any of that. It doesn't mean that some appearance is your worst nightmare. It doesn't mean you know, if you don't want to have like some rash, it doesn't mean that that's your worst nightmare. If you try to avoid some outcome, it doesn't mean that's the worst nightmare and you're obsessed with it. You can achieve a goal like weight loss without necessarily it being your worst nightmare to be big. It does. All of these talking points are not valid.